Hello and welcome to the Pirates Fan Forum here on DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. I am your newly dubbed small spending market host, Gary Morgan. With me, as always, my good friend Jim Stam. How you doing, brother?
Doing all
Wasn't that
right.
nice of John Heyman to give us that new nickname?
I glossed right over that until you saw it and mentioned it, and it gave me a good chuckle. But yeah, man. Hey, listen, we're getting close to Christmas. Every day, Pirate fans run down the steps and look under the tree. And if you wanted Christian Walker, well, sorry, you got Spencer Horwitz. So just harken back to when you're a kid and you wanted laser tag, but they got you the Big Lots Moonbeam knockoff.
You got the
And
green grind begun. I get it.
right,
Get
so
it.
we're used to it.
So also joining us from our sister city, and I guess you would call it big spending market, Boston.
Ooh.
My God, Massachusetts. The Pod by the River podcast to the Show Me or to the Show We Go podcast. Wow, pretty cool. And writer for Beyond the Monster Substack, our good friend Ed Hand.
Hey, good to meet you guys.
Ed's a reasonable guy. I know a lot of people from different markets, and I talked to a lot of them, and I've made pretty good connections with them. In fact, Ed put out like some feelers the other day looking for some new connections himself, I saw. So, I mean, it's hard to find people that aren't crazy in other markets and don't overvalue their guys ridiculously and vice versa when you start talking trades. Ed is one of those guys. So what we want to do is kind of bring one of our Twitter conversations to life here. That's what we want to do. We're going to talk trades with Ed. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to talk about them being involved in the Juan Soto deal and then not involved in it anymore. False reports of Corbin Burns signing in Toronto, just things like that. It's going to be a lot of fun. So let's get started, right?
Poor Toronto. I feel like they're always the victims of something like that. Like it was Ohtani on the plane last year. Now this. It's just and they're probably not going to get Guerrero or Bichette to come back. So it's just it just kind of sucks to be Toronto.
And they had this I don't know if you call it a window, but when things could have broken right for them and it didn't, and now they're almost past it. So like that sucks for them, I'm sure.
It does, and we've seen Toronto go through a long, long spell of bad baseball before they got into this current realm of spending and everything, right? Now it looks like they're falling back towards the bottom of the pack there, but they're still trying. They're really trying like hell one more year with these two guys, right?
Does seem like that, but there's something weird with that team. I don't know what it is, but they never seem to be able to put it all together. I don't know if it's a clubhouse thing, if this is just the logical conclusion of making a team full of nepo babies. I'm not really sure, but they're just there's just been something really off with them, and I don't know how to get over that hump, especially when you look at the talent on the roster and then the performance. It's pretty wild.
So Juan Soto, I think, again, Toronto just likes to be in the rumor mill. So the Pirates used to do this too, like when we bid on David Price, remember? Way back in the day. We were so close to getting David Price.
That was our Juan Soto.
Yeah. So I don't really count them. It was really the Yankees and Dodgers I felt were probably the front runners. And then Boston jumped in there. Were you surprised by that?
Yes and no. I mean, John Henry, the owner of the Red Sox, hasn't really wanted to spend on pitching, but with position players, it reminded me a little bit, and this is a while back, but it reminded me a little bit of when they brought in Manny Ramirez about 20 years ago, and it kind of turned around the perception of the franchise. It seemed like that was the kind of impact that they were going with. It's a lot less risky to get a guy who's, 26 years old and hasn't even hit his prime yet, and profiles the way Juan Soto does. I've said for years, if he ended up in Fenway, he'd be kind of like a Dominican Ted Williams, which would have been really cool. I wasn't expecting that to ever happen. I kind of thought it would be, I assumed it was going to be the Yankees until I realized that Steve Cohen doesn't know what to do with all of his money, so he just throws it at things. And then it became a little more interesting. But it was kind of nice just being in the conversation there and being able to imagine that, and then finding out that it was a pretty reasonable offer. It wasn't like they tried to lowball him or something. I think he would have ended up with the same amount of money as Ohtani, which, hey, like, Soto doesn't pitch. He might be a little bit younger, but he doesn't pitch. So that seemed it was just nice to be in the conversation again. I think some people started getting their hopes up maybe a little more than they should have, but can't complain about being mentioned there and it feeling like it was actually serious.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I can't even entertain being in that, Jem. I mean, what does that feel like? What questions make this think of for you?
No, I guess like Ed, on a scale of like 1 to 10, 1 being doesn't matter that we didn't get him, to 10 being really disappointed. I guess like where were you at in that, and like the fan base in general? Because it sounds like a good offer was made, a legitimate run was made, but like to me, like there were some parts about signing anybody to that big of a deal long term that would make me nervous. So where do you fall with that, and what did you sense from everybody in Red Sox Nation?
For me, I was I would say a 6, because it would have been really cool. I getting to watch a guy like Juan Soto. That's a guy who's probably, even unless something goes horrifically wrong, that's an active Hall of Famer. He's been incredible, and I don't know if we're going to see a contract like this come around for a while. I don't think Vladdy Jr. is going to get this kind of money. I think that the direction that baseball is trending is for players to get extended before they hit their market now. That might not always be the case, but at least for guys that are currently going to be entering free agency in the next 4 or 5 years, doesn't seem super likely to me. So I think that just for the amount of money, that wasn't super dangerous. I think it might have made it harder to sign other free agents. It was interesting with the Red Sox too, because I think that the fan base was generally like just happy that the Yankees didn't get him. But then the next day, the guy that a lot of people within the Red Sox fans were talking about, Max Fried, ended up going to the Yankees, and we found out, hey, they got outbid by the Yankees. And then rumors started coming around, oh, well, they're not going to bid that much on pitching. They're going to bring back Nick Pivetta, who is fine as a number 4 starter. I don't think he'd be like the number 5 starter for the Pirates, maybe, if he was lucky. Yeah. And that's who people, like, suddenly the narrative changed. People went into full meltdown mode. It was as down bad as anybody had seen it there. There were stories coming out of infighting between the manager and the president, and then the rest of the baseball ops team over signing Alex Bregman. It sounded like total dysfunction, total mess. And then the next day they traded for Garrett Crochet, and everybody's kind of happy now. So,
Gary, wouldn't you love to have these problems? Like these,
they sound like cool problems. But let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll digest everything he just said, because they just got Garrett Crochet, and there's still fans coming after me for Jared Jones.
At DK Pittsburgh Sports, we take pride in coverage that connects our city's fans to their favorite teams. Now, that connection's stronger than ever. Introducing our all-new state-of-the-art app. Find expert inside reporting and original podcasts. Check live box scores. Track the latest stats. Chat it up with our community of thousands of fans, all in one place. The new app from DK Pittsburgh Sports. Coverage that connects.
All right, welcome back to the Pirates Fan Forum here on DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. Ed is with us here graciously from Boston to talk about Boston stuff, but I kind of want to talk about some trade possibilities between the two of us, because we do need some stuff that they've got spares of, and we've got a lot of pitching, and they like pitching and need it. So
pretty bad.
People keep bringing up Jared Jones. I understand why. And this was before the report came out here in Pittsburgh that national sources or league sources had said that the Pirates had them on the table or were trying to ship them. I don't really know if I buy that they're shopping them so much as just listening. But is there anything here that this Jones rumor? I mean, is there a fit? We hear Abreu a lot. Is that a good 1-to-1 type trade?
Here is what's very interesting. I think that in most situations, neither Jones or Abreu would even be considered on the trading block. You look at someone like Jared Jones, that's a really good pitcher. That's a guy who's probably the top pitching prospect coming up this year for most teams. You wouldn't even consider him if you're the Red Sox, if you're, I would say 90% of baseball teams. But the Pirates are loaded with pitching. You've got Skeens, but then you've got all of these other guys coming up. You've got I prefer Chandler to Job on the Tigers. I heard his name come up in rumors. I don't think that they're trading Chandler unless they get a Roman Anthony equivalent, Roman Anthony being the top prospect for the Red Sox, who's considered the number one offensive prospect in baseball by a lot of people. And I don't think the Red Sox would trade him. I don't understand why the Pirates would trade Chandler. So that seems like,
I mean, I would do that swap, but I'm playing fantasy. You know? I mean, like, to me, like, that makes a lot of sense. It's no risk for today to either club. It addresses needs that both have coming. You know?
Yeah. I think though that there's when it's the top guy in your system, I just think that there are reasons not to do that. So I would say for the Pirates, they probably wouldn't do it, and I would say for the Red Sox, they probably wouldn't do it. But Jones and Abreu are really interesting in that they're both guys that had really nice rookie campaigns that got overshadowed by other people. In Jones's case, he's just a very good pitcher. I don't think we've seen the best out of him yet. I think that he's a guy who is probably going to end up being a really solid number 3 starter for most of his career. Assuming, and you know how pitching is, where this is assuming that they stay healthy. Yeah. But it's an embarrassment of riches for the Pirates with everything that's in the majors and everything that's coming up for them. With the Red Sox, the same is kind of true with outfield prospects. They just traded Braden Montgomery to the White Sox in the Garrett Crochet trade, who was their first pick. He was expected to be a top 5 guy in the draft. He busted his ankle and ended up falling to, I think, the 12th pick. So they got real lucky in getting him. But they also didn't need him because they have all of these other outfield guys coming up right now. You have Jarren Duran, who had an MVP level season. He obviously did win the MVP, but you look at what he did. He was one of the best all-around outfielders in baseball. Yeah. You have Cedar Rafaela, who they extended for a bunch of years, and he's not. The offense might not be there, but this is a Gold Glove level center fielder, and he's a right-handed bat on a team that doesn't have a lot of right-handed bats. There's a little bit of power. He's the kind of guy who's. I know that he was bad last year, but like Michael A. Taylor, if Michael A. Taylor could also play really good shortstop. And this is like Taylor before he got old. So, because Rafael is still pretty young, but that's the type of profile he has. And then you have Roman Anthony coming up also. So, William Abreu, who won a Gold Glove, has an absolute rifle for an arm, and doesn't kill you with the bat. He's another left-handed bat that doesn't really have a place. And this is a guy who has the ability. And I think I mentioned this in our Twitter conversation. I think that he has the talent to be a 280, 370 on base percentage, 30 home run guy. I look at a guy like Jack Sawinski on the Pirates, and I think that Abreu is kind of like an upgraded version of him. I don't think Sawinski is a bad player. I just think that Abreu is very good. So I wouldn't say – I don't think that Abreu for Jones even up would even do it, but I think that if you do Abreu and you offer – a good prospect with that. If the Pirates needed the pitching, absolutely not. But there's just so many guys coming up, and I don't know if there's room for all of them. And then this is just me. I don't know if there's any realistic chance to it, but how cool would it be to see a pitching rotation with Paul Skeens and Roki Sasaki in it? Like how cool would that be? If he ended up picking Pittsburgh and you have those two paired up with each other, do you really need Jared Jones? No, you're going to need outfield bats, and you're going to need affordable ones. Abreu is controllable for the next 5 years, so you're not going to really worry about paying him.
So let's just cut to the chase, Ed.
Yeah.
Would you pull the trigger on a deal like that? Jones and Abreu and maybe a little sweetener on the side. Is that something you would do?
I would as a Red Sox fan, because I think that if it wasn't for Anthony coming up, you create a huge hole in right field. But he's right there, and you're not going to be able to play all of them. So at some point you have to find a better fit. There are other guys too that need playing time. Like it's going to be really hard for them to trade Masataka Yoshida. He doesn't play the outfield, so he's going to be your DH unless you can give him away. That's an $18 million guy per season. That's really hard to who's going to want to take that on. So you can't really DH him. Are you comfortable with this guy being your fourth outfielder? You have Rob Refsnyder on for another year. You have a million right-handed bats. It just isn't a fit right now for this guy. You're wasting a gold glove player who can do other things as well. Is Jones necessarily the right fit? Maybe. I mentioned him because he's the kind of guy that the Red Sox, they have a lot of guys that are like number 4, number 5 starters. Cutter Crawford, Lucas Giolito, people like that. They don't have good middle of the rotation arms, so that's why he seems.
Well, you got Quinn Priester. He's going to be an ace.
I like Priester. I like him very much. It was really cool getting to see what they were doing with him in AAA because that's where I am a lot of the time. It seems like they're trying to revamp his arsenal. The velocity I didn't realize he could hit 97. Like he was throwing pretty hard. And there were some starts where he looked good and some starts where he didn't. I like him as depth. I don't think he's in the rotation right now, but Jones seems like someone that you could, for most rotations, he's immediately your number 3 starter, maybe even your number 2 starter.
For Priester, that's interesting because the velocity we saw in spurts, if they used him out of the pen. But I think that was our big complaint about him is he didn't have velocity. 93.
Yeah, I didn't realize he did at all.
Yeah, and I'm glad they're messing with his arsenal. I'm interested to see how he turns out. He's one of those kids, when they picked him out of high school, he had 5 pitches already and he was self-taught. And I think the Pirates kind of just let him go by himself. And then when he got to AA, they're like, whoa, cowboy. We got to see what's up here. And they started tweaking him, and then he just slowed to a crawl,
I feel like, again, if he's with a different team, I don't know if the Pirates trade him. But him at York, Red Sox didn't really need middle infielders. They have a million of them. York's a nice hitter. I don't know what you guys thought of him, but he always gave me vibes of Howie Kendrick.
We only got to see him for about 2 weeks. Jim, what'd you think of him?
I thought that there were some positives. I think he takes a nice aggressive at bat. And I think he's clearly going to get some opportunity here. So I thought it was a good trade. The problem is, and maybe we'll talk about this with some other things, but people just tend to overvalue their own players and undervalue what you're getting in, right? So
which is completely accurate.
Right. So, even, and I'm not picking on...
The more people you talk to, though, the more you can even that out. That's why I try to really talk to a lot of different people about it, get an idea.
Yeah.
But, overall, York, we didn't get to see a lot. I like the energy.
Got a great head of hair.
I wish that I thought I was going to see more power develop, but I think the only reason he is where he is because he kind of gave up on the launch angle stuff. So I guess I'll just take what I'm getting, which is a pretty consistent guy that can barrel the ball maybe to the alleys, more of a doubles guy than a home run guy.
Yeah, that's a good one. Howie Kendrick is the comparison that I've made since the Red Sox drafted him. I think he's a guy who could, this is best possible outcome. But this is a guy who could hit 300 with 15 homers and 35 doubles, something like that.
Yeah.
Which is useful. As a second baseman, that's fine.
You take it in a heartbeat. Yeah, we have no idea where he's going to play either.
Yeah,
they literally bounced him everywhere. I think
he only just started playing outfield this year. Because I saw he got some third base run with the Pirates, and I was like, he doesn't play third. What's he doing? Does he even have the arm strength for that?
Yeah. He played a little bit of left field, a little bit of right field. Third base. Didn't they even stick him at short once, Jim?
I don't remember.
He was at second a couple times, and at first base once, I remember.
But to your point overall,
Billy Cook, they were doing the same thing too.
Yeah, it's very hard to foresee where they'll get him playing time and at bats just because they used him so many different ways and in a very short amount of time. So, before we move on, and if we've got more to go with this, that's fine. Ed, another connection with the Pirates here is Chapman, right?
God,
So
yeah. Yep.
So you guys go ahead and take the half fastball will travel guy to Boston for a year. Almost the same deal the Pirates gave him. I think you guys gave him an extra $250K, which that's a hot dog at Fenway for you guys. So what do you think of him? Again, same question. Fans reaction. Go.
People were not happy about that signing for the most part. Thought it was an overpay and didn't like there were the domestic violence things from 8 years ago, I think. And then there was also him quitting on the Yankees around the playoff time where he 2 years ago where he sort of just left.
Yeah.
But the thing with the Red Sox bullpen right now is that they don't really have any lefties that throw hard. They had a lot of dink and dunkers last year, Brennan Bernardino. Cam Bouger throws hard, but he was a 32-year-old rookie, and he's fine as your number 2 lefty. He's not really somebody you would use in a leverage spot. And with Kenley Jansen hitting free agency and ending things on such a sour note in Boston, I think it's good that they got a guy that does have the closing experience just in case. I mean, you know how relievers are. They're
sounds so much like us last year. It really
They're
does.
so volatile.
It's the same thing. And you guys, you'll see. He goes through a stretch. You've watched him with the Yankees.
Oh yeah,
He just blows it. He just blows it for 3 or 4 games, and then he's throwing 103 the next day. And
yeah, when he's right, he's a get out of jail free card, right? He gets you out of anything and everything when he's right. It's just when he's not, then you got to go through those stretches where it's an adventure. So he is what he is at this point.
All I know is the fans here bucked like Broncos when they signed him, and then they're bucking that he's not here now. So,
yeah, that's how it always goes.
For the most part,
damned if you do, damned if you don't.
For the most part, people are sad to see him go, I would say. I mean, I as long as they replace him well, I don't care.
And some of that comes, Gary, with the Pirates right now is we have some bullpen questions, right? So we don't have the lefties in the bullpen right now. He obviously filled a role and being a hard thrower. So I think some of that too was, fans were realizing, well, if we don't re-sign him, they've got a little more work to do. So,
So anyway. I wanted to talk a little bit selfishly about a Pirates trade with you. We picked up Horwitz here.
Oh yeah, Spencer Horwitz.
You've watched Spencer Horwitz play a little bit in your division, right?
I got to see him play in the minors a bunch, actually, because I live fairly close to where the Toronto AA affiliate is, so I got to see him play a bunch there.
And Jim, you put a poll up to see what the fans thought about this trade, right?
Mm-hmm.
What did they think of the trade? While you're pulling it up, I'll read off the trade.
Okay.
We traded to the Guardians Luis Ortiz, who many of you thought should have gotten Abreu done.
Right.
Starting pitcher prospect Josh Hartle, who we just drafted last year, and Michael Kennedy, which kills my soul a little bit, but only because I think he's going to be a delicious, crafty lefty for the Guardians for a long time once they get him cooked. But that's the trade. What did the fans think, Jim?
Yeah, so I really left it pretty simple. I just said, did you like the trade? And almost 300 votes. We've still got about 15 hours left on the poll, but 50% said yes.
Wow.
23% said no. 27% said I'm not sure. So
the vocal minority for the win, because all the comments I see are that it was a drastic overpay.
Well, here we are back to the whole thing about overvaluing what you have and undervaluing what you're going to get in return, right?
Yeah.
And the simple fact that you know more about one guy, right? You know more about Luis Ortiz if you're a Pirate fan. You don't know who Spencer Horwitz is. You're not Ed.
Yeah.
Going and seeing his minor league games. God bless you. But
Ed doesn't know these prospects probably as well as we do. You don't know.
No, I know.
Kennedy.
I know Hartle, but only because I do
You
these.
probably scouted
I
him
do.
for-
Yeah. Well, no, I do these dynasty leagues where you can draft guys out of college.
Yeah.
He was a guy that I had on one of those teams, so I know a little bit about him. I don't know anything about Kennedy.
Regardless, he's thrown 1.2 professional innings. So
yeah, so, but,
he's a lottery ticket. Michael Kennedy's, a pretty decently developed low or high A player. I think he'll probably be threatening the league by 26, And then Luis Ortiz, he could be a starter if he develops another pitch. He could be a starter in a pinch, whether he does that or not. He could be back end bullpen guy, but he's going to be a major league pitcher most likely. That's what you know, and he's got a lot of years of control. We got Horwitz back.
Yeah.
Did we do okay?
Yeah, so it's an interesting trade. I like Horwitz. I think he's a good hitter. I don't think he's a prototypical first baseman in that he's not a power hitter, but he gets a lot of hits and he gets on base.
Yeah.
And I mean, look at who the Pirates. Who was their first baseman last year? Did you guys go into the season with like Rowdy Tellez or something?
Tellez.
Yeah. So he was more of a prototype, and Red Sox fans are terrified of Rowdy Tellez, by the way, because when he was with the Blue Jays, he just would destroy the Red Sox. I don't think he destroyed many other teams, but he just demolished.
I irrationally hate
Sox.
Colton Wong. I get it.
He helped destroy the Pirates. So that I'm kidding. I'm kidding. He had 2 good months, but
he did rebound very well.
But yeah, but I like Horwitz. I think he's a good player, and I think that you have to look at it through what the Pirates have available, right? Like they don't want to spend money. Okay, you're not going to sign. I had heard the Pirates were connected with Anthony Rizzo, and I guess that did end up happening. I think Horwitz is preferable to Rizzo. I think he is, if he's going to be your first baseman, I would rather have a guy that's controllable and seems pretty durable. Seems like he can hit 280 with like maybe 12, 15 home runs, good on base percentage on a regular basis. You don't have to pay him as much. And maybe they're not paying money, but what do the Pirates have? Pitching prospects. They have a ton of pitching prospects. They can't all play. So
he's probably pretty much a straight platoon too. I mean, right? I mean, at least that's what they've done with him so far, and his numbers suggest you should do it.
Yeah. Yeah, which means you can get a righty that mashes lefties. And I think he played second base for the Blue Jays a bunch last year. I don't think he was very good at it. But
I don't want to see it.
Yeah.
But yeah. Brian Reynolds is probably going to fill in at first base, I would imagine, for the right-handed platoon. That's what I think would be their plan going in. Or they have Billy Cook as well, Jared Triolo.
It's a fit that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
I think that when you have as much pitching as the Pirates do, you just use that as money instead of actual money, which is frustrating. Like I would be very frustrated with the lack of willingness to just pay for these guys if you wanted to keep the prospects. But I don't for what their plan is and for what the team is, I don't think it's a bad fit. I understand why they made that move.
And to your point, he's not prototypical first baseman, but the Pirates haven't had any first baseman. So like maybe non-prototypical is better just in.
He is a pretty good first baseman though. He's gotten some fielding awards at first base in the minor leagues.
Yes.
So,
yeah,
that should be acknowledged. He is short, 5'10". That's not great, but we don't have O'Neal Cruz throwing the ball anymore either.
Fair enough there. I forgot about that.
And again, he fits a need. He's a left-handed hitter that hits righties well, and the Pirates have not had enough of that. So, to me, the power would be nice if he had it. He doesn't necessarily have that. If he gets on base, and they're not willing to go and spend money on somebody legitimate that for a fact can handle everything, I thought it was a sneaky little pickup. I did. I think Luis Ortiz probably outpitched his numbers last year in the sense of his peripherals. And so 50%, back to the poll, 50% of Pirate fans seem to like it. So that's hard to get 50% of anything.
Yeah, like the stuff I wouldn't tell you if I was trying to sell you the used car of Luis Ortiz is basically like he doesn't get any ground balls and he doesn't miss enough bats. As good as his stuff is, he just doesn't miss enough bats.
And he took some steps forward with, the walks.
He cleaned up the walks, but
there were some good
that
things.
not missing bats is a problem.
Cleveland's good at maximizing those guys, though, so it makes sense too. I'm sure they saw some things that they liked in everybody.
He's got a change up.
They're really good at that.
He's got a change up. He tried to introduce in 2023, and he sucked balls in 2023 because of it. And then 2024, he came back and he went to a cutter, and he got rid of the change up. Well, the cutter's not different enough, so he stopped missing bats. Now he was controlling the zone and cutting down on the walks, but he still gave up. So he gave up the same amount of home runs, but it didn't hurt as bad because he wasn't putting so many guys on base.
Yeah, he's limiting the damage. I mean, they're pitching. You can make it, especially if you're lefty. You can make it as a pitch to contact guy.
Yeah, well, we'll see what he does. I think he's got a good future. But he was going to need work, and he was going to get pushed out of this rotation, whether people want to admit it or not. I think Mike Burrows is a guy nobody even talks about for the Pirates that could take a spot this year. I think he could come right out of spring. I really mean it. I think he's that progressed.
I think so too. I think he's right at that sweet spot of the recovery too, from the UCL. So, Gary, do we want to get into any of the financial stuff right now, the money talk about baseball with Mr. Big Bucks over here, or do we want to wait?
We should do it, but let's take a break first because we got to rest ourselves before we arrest ourselves.
All right.
At DK Pittsburgh Sports, we take pride in coverage that connects our city's fans to their favorite teams. Now, that connection's stronger than ever. Introducing our all-new state-of-the-art app. Find expert inside reporting and original podcasts. Check live box scores. Track the latest stats. Chat it up with our community of thousands of fans, all in one place. The new app from DK Pittsburgh Sports. Coverage that connects.
All right, welcome back to the Pirates Fan Forum here on DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. Before we start talking about money, let's talk about us giving you some money. We got $100 gift card out there from our partners here at shopyins.com. All you got to do is find our post on social media. I put it up on Facebook and X, and I'm not putting it anywhere else because I'm too lazy to learn the kids' tech. So those are the two it's going to be on.
Gary, I put it on MySpace, so we're covered there.
Oh, good. Thank goodness. I wanted to make sure your old ex-high school girlfriend could find it. So just all we want you to do is reply under the post. We want your Yinzeriest Christmas displays. Christmas and Yinzer. That's what it's got to be. Pittsburgh themed. If you dress your animal up in silly outfits and they make sad faces with a Pirates hat on, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's what we want. The winner gets this $100 gift card.
Houses. Throw a baby in there just for the hell of it.
Don't throw a baby.
Well, but yes.
I mean, if you're going to catch it, I guess, it makes a good video. Cool. We'll give you style points. But make sure you reply something underneath on social media for us. We'll pick a winner next week and give it away live on the show. It'll be fun. So, back to baseball money. Ed, how do you feel sitting on your perch? I mean, wait, that's not the way to approach this.
Ivory tower?
I don't hate big money teams at all. I actually respect the hell out of you because your owners want to spend money and they make money and they spend it. And the player pool would be minuscule if everyone operated like Bob Nutting. No talent would come into this league at all if you couldn't get paid. That said, are we starting to get a little queasy about how imbalanced it's getting?
And Ed, before you answer, you say whatever you feel on this subject.
Yeah,
if it is let them eat cake, then Gary and I will get cake for everybody. So because this needs to be just, I want to have an open discussion with this. So many people are just not willing to do that or have an honest discussion about it. So go for it, man. If you want to piss everybody off over in Pittsburgh, go for it.
Yeah, so you might be surprised to learn that the majority of Red Sox fans think that John Henry is super cheap. I'm not kidding about
I
that.
do know this to be
I've
true.
picked up on that lately
Yeah.
a lot.
And some of that is because going to Fenway Park, I'm very fortunate. I live about 15 minutes away from Fenway, so I take an Uber there. It's not that big of an expense to get there, but it's still really expensive. Like you were talking before about $250,000 buying you maybe a hot dog if you're lucky there. Yeah, it's really expensive to go to a Sox game. So if they're not good and you're paying after tickets and food and parking are taken care of, if you're paying $250 for that, you're going to be pissed off. That's a lot of money for a 3-hour experience that might not necessarily be positive. So I understand the Red Sox fans' annoyance with that. Like, okay, we're spending all of this money, buy us a good team, but they're still spending a ton of money. You look at other teams,
Yeah.
not even like look what happened in Oakland. I feel so bad for A's fans. Like as soon as they move to Sacramento or whatever it is, and then they're heading to Vegas, they invest in players. It's infuriating that these guys are multimillionaires. They have
Well, you know why, right? You know why they're investing, right?
Oh no, I know why. I know it was to so they can make that move, so they don't get vetoed out of it and everything. That's what I heard at least.
No, they have to get their payroll up to 105 million this year, or they lose revenue sharing.
That is okay. So they need to enforce that more. So it can't just be like once every now and then.
It's enforced.
thing.
It's literally written
Yeah.
into the CBA this way that it times out that this is the year they have to get it to 105 million.
How much time did they have like before that though to just tank? Like it feels like they
that
had a
was gonna
lot
be
of
my question.
3 years because they had spent before.
It's I think that the best way to mitigate it is to introduce a floor. I think it would be impossible to put a salary cap on. I think that I just don't think that would work with the union. But I think that if you put a floor on and make teams spend a minimum at least, that they can't just cheap their way out of it and just try to go off of not paying guys. Because I look at the Pirates and I look at all the guys that they've traded over the years, all the guys that they've developed, and then they just end up acting as the Yankees farm system and that sort of thing. I think it's total bullshit to operate that way. I don't like this. I don't like that with Paul Skeens. You're already hearing about 3 years in, they're already going to be talking about trading him and that kind of thing. I think it's bad for baseball. I don't think though that you can enforce teams not spending as much either. I think that spending on the players and spending on making your team better and making the product better is probably the way to go. But it is complicated. I'd happily give up the Red Sox financial advantage that they have and all the other big market teams that they have just to even things out and make baseball better. But I think everybody should be spending more, honestly.
I'm with you on my feelings for how difficult it'll be, and like that. I don't think any union would accept it. I don't think any union has ever accepted it willingly. It's always taken a shutdown of the game for a year in all leagues.
And that's even worse for baseball. That would be like, I remember the lockout from a couple of years ago was a nightmare. It was awful. So I wouldn't want something like that to happen again either. But
I mean, I watched hockey shut down in the prime of Mario Lemieux's career.
Yeah.
So, I wasn't happy.
No, it's very hard to find that balance, but I think that it's ridiculous that, I mean, the Pirates should have a bigger, you can, if you think that I'm crazy for this, like, that is a storied franchise. That is, the Pirates are, in my opinion, one of the best historical franchises. They have the best stadium in baseball. They have the most exciting pitcher in baseball right now. How is this team not spending more? How are you not building a juggernaut behind Paul Skeens? It seems insane to me. You have these other guys coming. You have Chandler coming up. You have Harrington right on the.
Well, let me stop you
there.
there. Let me stop you there. I understand they want to that. You would just assume that they're just choosing not to spend money. Their claim is they don't have as much as we think that they do, right? Now, there's no open books in baseball. So
open the books.
I can't tell you. No, but there's only 2 teams that do it. And they're publicly owned. It's the Green Bay Packers and the Atlanta Braves.
Yeah.
You see the Atlanta Braves books every year.
Yeah, you know what's
Well-
great about the Braves too? They never have any rumors about them that get leaked. You just hear about like a player getting signed that you had no idea they were even talking to. You hear about
Yeah,
Ozzy
you're
Allen's
right.
getting extended for nothing, and nobody was talking about this happening. Or Ronald Acuna, or I mean, the Braves. Maybe that's good for baseball. The Braves are one of the best run organizations I think in any sport. Like maybe that's good. Maybe that kind of accountability is good.
Maybe we're taking the wrong approach here, because I think like the difference between the Pirates and the rest of those big spenders is different. In fact, from our perch, I'm uncomfortable discussing it. I know our owner's a shit. You know, I know what he's doing. I know he's underspending. I know he's pocketing money. I also know no matter what, no matter how altruistic they are, they top out at the Brewers, my friend. And the Brewers are like somewhere in the 150s if they're pushing it. And like that is as much as they can do. That's a good owner. That's a good GM. The Pirates don't stretch it at all. And so they don't do themselves favors. I feel bad for teams like Milwaukee that do try as hard as they can. They do spend as much as
Or
they
the
can.
situation San Diego's going to be in.
San Diego's going
God.
to have to go into a sell-off now, right?
They're
Because
going to regret giving AJ Preller all that cocaine. That's all I can say about that.
And Cohen's only spending play money right now. Once he gets his championship, somebody's going to get to him and be like, hey, remember you need to start making money again instead of spending it all? And then he'll have to back off, right? So there's different things that happen in different sports. I don't begrudge any of them, but like even you in Boston, you can't keep up with LA.
No.
You can't
No,
do
not at all.
nobody can do the kind of contracts LA is doing. So like even from just that kind of functional standpoint, there's got to be some kind of brakes put on, right? Like or it just never stops. The Dodgers aren't going to spend a dime for Ohtani.
Well, Otani's also kind of a cheat code because of how internationally popular he is. Just having him on your team prints money.
Sure.
It's
And
a unique.
speaking of
It's
printing
a
money,
unique
they're a hedge
case.
fund.
Right.
Yeah. The
That's very
Ohtani
true.
the Ohtani thing's a unique case, I guess. Like, and maybe Gary, I don't know if this is part of what you're getting at, but it's like when teams like the Red Sox feel like, man, we can't keep pace. Like, what's the difference between spending 180 and 150? Why don't we just spend the 150 and hope it works out? And that's $30-40 million we don't have to put into payroll, since you can't compete with 350 million anyway. So and then when you back off that from the Red Sox, how many teams under them are saying the same things, where when you get half of a league that is simply going to say, well, we can't compete with that anyway, we're just going to try to do it a different way and not spend money, and it may work out. That can't be real good for a sport.
No. Yes and no, because people do love super teams. Like, that's why the Yankees were so popular for such a long time, because they were always the team that was winning. This is something that's been going on in baseball for a very long time. I mean, they used to, before there was a draft, the Yankees would just buy out all the top prospects, and they just wouldn't let anybody else get them. They just buy everything. So it's always been a problem, and teams always adapt as
And then
more
the draft
regulations are put
fixed
into
it
place.
until the Yankees got their own cable network.
Yeah, pretty much, yes.
And then it changed everything again. And then they did it again and went and started buying up all the players. And now the Yankees are watching the Dodgers buy up all the players. So I'm asking, like, are the really big boys who aren't the biggest boys starting to get a little uncomfortable about how imbalanced it is, even for you?
Oh, I would think so. I think that the
Of
Red
the
Sox being
Cardinals in
forced to
this
trade Mookie
situation.
Betts.
I think of the
Cardinals,
Cardinals in this situation, right? You know, they do things so well, right? They do, and they will spend, and they will lock up certain guys and whatnot. But it's getting exponentially harder for teams even like that.
Yeah. I mean, that's why you're seeing a guy like Chaim Bloom, who the Red Sox had previously brought in, taking over there to go from this ground up approach where you build up the farm system, you create a pipeline, you modernize it so you maximize the players that you have, and then you extend the guys from within at a lower price. You buy out the earlier years of the contract, so you're not signing guys like Juan Soto as they're turning 26 years old. That's one way around it, but the game will evolve around that as well. So it's very that maybe that works for now, but eventually other teams pick up on that. How do you beat that? And I guess the main way is like how the Rays do it, where you develop your own players and you maximize what you have, and you just have a better analytics department than anybody else. The Rays don't make that much money.
And every year, guaranteed, at the end of the season, somebody with a bigger payroll pats them on the head and says, "Good job, kids."
Yep.
Because they never win at all.
Yeah, and then that.
Well, and then you never get to tie up some of your guys long term.
You don't get Hall of Famers,
or when you do one, it ends up like Wander Franco.
Yeah, right. Of all things, right? So then it's like surviving in baseball in a way that, boy, that's tough on fan bases, right? Because you don't ever get your Tony Gwynn. He's gone, right? And or whoever you want to say that plays a long time somewhere. So that to me is sad in general for teams where you just don't get to build a history with certain guys that you'd love to keep long term. You move them prior to them outliving the feasibility of their contract in the market you're in.
Yeah, Jose Ramirez with Cleveland really is an anomaly, because that's the thing that I always think about is like, well, they managed to get this guy who's probably going to be a future Hall of Famer on a perfectly reasonable deal. He could have gotten more elsewhere, but you don't. I think that's like a high character player that you don't see that very often.
It's like a Sidney Crosby taking $8.7 million every year.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You just aren't gonna see that very much, and you can't depend on it. You can't expect these guys to do that. Like,
it's even Andrew McCutchen coming in for $5 million.
This is totally, Ed, what you're saying right now is this isn't a player thing, right? Players have every right to go and get what the market dictates and get top dollar. So before anybody says anything, I'm all for the players doing whatever they can do on their end, because baseball's so tough to make it and get paid.
It's hard to watch a league though, like where if Patrick Mahomes was a free agent tomorrow, Green Bay would have just as much a chance of signing him as Dallas, Texas, as New York, or Peoria if there was a team there. It doesn't matter because everybody has the same pool to play with. That's the goal, I think, for baseball. Once TV kind of finishes crashing, I think they're going to have to do it. And once everything's centralized to MLB, that's the only time they'd be able to force it, because there'd only be a couple teams that actually own their networks. And I think they'd have to be like, listen, guys, you're either going to be giving us like 3/4 of what you make in revenue from those TV stations to stay in the league so we can float everybody, or you're going to come into it and just surrender your rights, and we're going to make it one big poll and live off of it.
I can't imagine the legal battles,
me either.
My God.
But how else can you see it going? And I'm not saying this is like 2 years from now, so please don't be like,
right.
Pretend I got a quantum leap machine and I'm bouncing around. This could be 15, 20 years from now.
God, I don't.
This league will not survive forever like this, though. And especially they're talking about expansion. In 2026, 2 more teams coming into this league. I mean,
I think that's a good thing. I don't mind that at all. I think that there are a lot.
I don't mind it as long as there's a player pool to support it.
Right.
We don't have enough pitchers now. In the league, there's too many bad pitchers in this league.
Well, it's just going to reduce the quality for a while, but it gives guys opportunities also. There are plenty of very talented guys that just never got their opportunity. So I don't think that creating more jobs is necessarily going to be a bad thing. I think that there's a guy on the Red Sox named Nick Sogard who, Eric Sogard's cousin, he made his debut this year, and he got sent down after like his first 30 at bats. And I remember talking to him in the dugout, and I was like, yeah, I mean, how was it? I was like, the pace of play. He's like, it wasn't really that different, but the problem is that the only way to get better at hitting big league pitching is to get reps against big league pitching. Yeah. So you have to have the opportunity to do it. So I don't think that it necessarily is going to reduce the quality of players. I think that it will, if anything, increase it, just because it's like iron sharpening iron. You're going to have more guys competing against the best that will get better by osmosis. But it's like you were saying though, like, what kind of a team, what's the financial situation going to be like? Are you just adding in a couple more Colorado Rockies that don't really do anything with the league? Like how do you enforce competition? How do you enforce teams to not just pocket the money on the side?
Yeah, you're back to a little bit of the same argument we're talking about.
Then you do those expansion drafts, and while we know everything is as imbalanced as it is, let's just go ahead and bang every single one of these teams exactly the same amount of hard.
I mean, there are ways around that. There are ways around that where it's like, like you make it based on pay. I don't know, but
I remember the last one. I mean, they don't know what they're doing at all with these expansion drafts, especially if they do it like the NHL. The NHL sets them up so they can win the cup the first 5 years.
Yeah, you can go overboard with it too, right? And Ed, you brought up something really interesting that you said at the beginning of this, and I guess this is funny because as a Pirate fan, I've never had to think about this, but you said, fans in Boston. You go to games, you're heavily investing in them when you go. It's not cheap. You're going to spend $200, $250. Pirate fans, we don't have to worry about that. The sad thing is you can go to a Pirate game, probably get a free ticket if you want one.
Jim, tell him about the ballpark pass, because it'll blow his mind.
Yeah. So, Ed, there are other teams that do this too, but the Pirates offer a ballpark pass, which is essentially you get for a flat fee every month access to every home game, and it's standing room only. Now in Pittsburgh, now we have all those the rail seatings and the bar stools in the outfield and umbrella seats and everything. So like that's what you get access.
Stadium. You have a gorgeous stadium. You are not like Fenway, which is a great novelty to visit because it's going into a museum, but then you try to buy affordable seats and there's a giant pole in your face.
Yes, lacking the amenities and the thoughtfulness of these new stadiums. Well, do you know for the Pirates, you can get a ballpark pass that gives you access to every game of that month, home games, standing room only. It's $40 a month.
Wow. I do think that the Red Sox offer something like that. It is significantly more, though, and it's usually just during April when they're really trying to get people to the
only
stadium.
time you can't get it in Pittsburgh is opening day, I think. But
4th of July and opening day, yeah.
That's wild.
I think it's 4th of July anyway. Looks like Jim froze up. He's so excited by his savings that he froze up.
I'm back.
There he is.
I'm back. I don't know what the hell that was. But no,
Ed was not as blown away by that as I thought he would be. He understands that we have a bargain basement operation where we would do stuff like that. We have Dollar Dog Night too.
That sounds great. I mean, I go to it's funny. I go to a lot of AAA games, and the food there is getting almost as pricey as a Red Sox game. It's so weird.
That's
I just went to Altoona. I just went to Altoona, and unlike that murder, I didn't stop at McDonald's. I got food in Altoona at the ballpark. They got this new burger there. Oh my god! I mean, like it was unbelievable. This curve burger. Oh my god!
Minor league food is great. Like I don't know if this is with you guys too, because again, you have this gorgeous stadium. Why would you want to go to minor league games? But I've gotten to a point where I prefer going to the AAA than AA games, just because the food's usually better and you can actually see the game.
I'll tell you what I like most about it, Ed. Like everybody around you is straight up baseball fan.
Yep.
Yeah.
They're locked in.
Yeah.
I mean, spring training's like that too. You got some kids and you got some, curiosity seekers that got drug along, but for the most part, they're all pretty diehards.
I've been to the Pirates spring training stadium. Actually, I went to 2 games there in 2017. It was a really great experience.
Yeah. I can't wait to watch your Future Stars game though this year.
It's going to be good.
I was at the first one for the first one ever. Actually, it was on ESPN with Paul Skeens this year.
Oh my God.
Baltimore.
In Baltimore. So the first at bat was what's his face? The
Holiday?
other nepotism. Yeah, Holiday.
Jackson
Holiday
yeah.
versus Skeens. Oh my God.
My God.
And he blew him away. He just blew him out of the water. It was unbelievable.
How much fun. The only thing that I can think of that compares to it is in the late 90s, early 2000s, Pedro Martinez pitching in Boston was must-see TV. He was I've never seen a pitcher like him, and I've never been to a game watching a pitcher like that. But I've got to imagine that for you guys, Skeens must be basically the same thing.
We've never had a pitcher. We don't even have. If you ask us which pitcher should be in the Hall of Fame, we don't have one.
So it's just Skeens.
We go back to Babe Adams.
Wow,
like we're talking
storied franchise with that's
not
wild.
pitching.
That
We've always been the lumber company, man.
I mean, there have been some
company.
really good guys to come from there.
You'd be surprised with the pitching, Ed. There's not been as much as you think. Certainly not since Gary and I have been alive. So
we celebrate guys like Chris Benson.
I remember Chris Benson. You mean Mr. Anna Benson? I think.
Yeah. That's more accurate. But AJ Burnett is like God here for his 3 years.
Yeah, he was
you know what I mean.
Yeah, to the point where people want to put him on a Mount Rushmore of pitchers for the Pirates after 1980. So
that is so sad. I'm sorry, but that is so sad.
Yeah,
it really is. But you do. Oh, back to what I was saying. You bring up a good point there that I feel like that's something we never have to really consider in Pittsburgh, which is Boston fans they're paying. They expect more, and they know that it's there. So that's an interesting thought. It's certainly nothing we ever have to worry about here.
Yeah. Hey, you guys both got a hard out at 6 here, so we got to get going. But this was a great talk.
Yeah, really.
I just loved
really
how chaotic it got. We were all over the place. A lot of fun. There's a lot of good nuggets in there. Good luck to you, man. And if we do make a deal, I think you and I have certainly talked it to death.
Yeah. But hopefully, I mean, I think that the future is bright for both teams if they're managed well, and we'll see. We'll see what happens. I think I've told you this. I do really like the Pirates. Like I think that of the NL
we've
teams,
talked about it before. Like,
they're a really enjoyable team with really storied franchise. Like what's not to like?
People aren't gonna like it the way it looks probably when they're done here, but I do think the team is going to improve this year.
Just beat the Cubs. Just beat the Cubs. That's all I care about.
Yep. So anyways, hey, everybody, that was good. Make sure you do get your entry in for the Christmas show. I'll remind you online a few more times. Thanks to Ed Hand. Really good. Check out his shows, for real. I love checking out shows from other markets. Really learn a lot about their players and what they think when they don't think you're listening. You know, I really like that. If I'm asking questions as a Pirates fan, they know I'm a Pirates fan. They want to give me something that's going to comfort me if they're a nice guy. They don't want to give me something to comfort me if they hate the Pirates. You know, so I want the truth. Go listen to their shows when they don't think you're listening. You really learn what they think, right? I love it. That's why Jim and I are so nice to all the players until they're gone.
That's exactly right. It's exactly right.
I didn't talk about Luis Ortiz deficiencies until he was traded. So
now,
anyways,
Trevor Williams may take some,
he was good. He was so good this year.
That's crazy.
When he was healthy, he was awesome somehow.
Pitching,
he had the
you
magic
never know.
formula going. When his control's on, he was good. Yeah, for that 90 games or so.
Whatever it was.
Anyways, thanks everybody. We'll talk to you later.
Let's go back.
Yeah, buddy.